There's one thing that can be disconcerting for us, and will always be, this certainty that every time we are faced with Christianity, we are faced with a fertile, profound reality that is not easily understood at first reading or at first observation. Guimarães Rosa, a writer from Minas Gerais that I really like, wrote a text called The Third Bank of the River. But when we look at the river, we actually see two banks, a third, and that is the beauty of Guimarães Rosa's story, because the author insinuates life from another reality that we cannot see. The beauty of life often lies not in what we can see. We can see from what the eyes cannot. So, have you entered Christian's heart? Growth that implies maturity, that implies a sharper, less common, less superficial vision, because God does not dwell in superficiality. And that is why happiness is a deep well that requires effort, just like in the countryside. I remember back in the interior of Minas Gerais, in order to get quality water, we had to dig a lot. And the water stations, the deeper they were, the higher the quality and purity of the water that was taken there. If when taking the water, the effort of throwing the bucket, of using all that force so that the water could come out, the heavier the thing there, the greater the depth of water was being taken out. We didn't care. We made an effort. We stayed there for a while, so that the water could come out. And when she came, the joy of seeing her so hard, so crystal clear, what was worth the effort? The time of the effort was worth it. Understanding the blessings. Happened overnight alone. Happiness of those who have already known how to immerse themselves in that which comes before her. That is why the blessing. First, at the beginning, the text presents it. Part, which is the sacrifice to then show the consolation. We can only talk about joy if we first knew how to talk about sadness. We can only talk about consolation if we first knew how to talk about despair. Because human life is concrete, and the moment we discover that it gains meaning as we dive into before to later know the true after. If you still haven't been able to discover what truly makes you happy, what fulfills you, if perhaps today in your life, you follow me now, if perhaps you have not yet discovered the true meaning of your life, if you're still sad, if you're still unhappy, maybe it is because you have not yet been able to delve into the mystery of your sadness. For example, maybe you have not yet been able to delve into the mystery of your suffering, and therefore, you have not extracted anything from it other than disappointment. The gospel has taught us time every day, very clearly, so much so that only those who know how can win. I heard a beautiful story. A biology teacher once told me that a cicada needs to sing. Before that, it has to spend a year in the solitude of the earth, living the entire process of metamorphosis, the entire process of transformation. A cicada needs it for a whole day until it dies, which is how long the life of a cicada lasts. It needs to cultivate itself. During a year of the solitude of the earth, living the process of becoming a cicada until it breaks out of the earth and sings until it explodes. That's why every time we hear a cicada singing around. Take into account that little creature prepared a lot to do what it's doing. Does it sing for 234 hours? I don't know. I don't know how long a cicada lives. Just one day. Maybe even less than that. The song of one day is the expression of the preparation of an entire life. Blessed is the cicada, who endures the solitude of the earth, who bears the weight of solitude, because Bella will be the field, she will be the melody. If today we could paraphrase the gospel just so we can understand what personal blessedness means. I don't know your life very well. I know something. Do you know why? Because when we look, we know that somehow we have already been through many similar things. Even if we don't have the opportunity to sit at the table and tell each other what we have been through. But I am sure that if today I tell you a little about my pains, and you tell us a little about yours, in many moments our stories will meet. Human sufferings are very similar. They just change address. My mother used to say all the time, each one in their corner suffers a lot. Life is like that. If today you wanted to write a report of your life and discover how much you have grown in your story, if today you wanted to write a report of your life, who would you do? If wanted to write a report of your life, who would you do? If today you wanted to write a report on your life and discover how much you have grown in your history, if today you wanted to write a report on your life, perhaps remember who you are Write a report on who you are. Tell the world who you are. All you have to do is write a report on everything you have suffered, of everything you had to strive for, of everything you had to fight for, of everything you had to reconcile within yourself. There is your identity. There is your mark. There is your face. In the life you have worked hard for, I said that you love the children you raised. In the sleepless nights, for that child, so that that child would have life, so that he or she would continue to live. We are from time and history, the sum of everything we have been able to prepare. If today you had the opportunity to say who you are, you wouldn't know how to say it if you didn't say it together. Everything that has happened, that has marked me, that has defined me, everything you have suffered, everything you have already let go of, everything that you have already buried, the whole life story that has passed through your days, through your home, through your family, because there is no concrete human being outside of experience of suffering. But isn't it suffering for? That it is not suffering for the sake of suffering. Iasmin, the blessings are always being shown when Jesus presents us with a way of being a man, a way of being a woman, which is precisely showing that life is only possible when we are able to make the equation of suffering to live it from the perspective of redemption. So, the resurrection, always a Calvary. If you have to walk 30 kilometers, you need to take a step. Small initiatives. The suffering of the walk is worth the joy of arriving. This is being blessed. You have before you the certainty that this religion, this God that you love, wants nothing more than to put you on this journey of happiness, of this fulfillment, of this joy that is not a forward joy. It is not a passing joy, but that is made precisely at the moment in which you are willing to live, from a perspective of struggle, of commitment. There is also an interesting story. They say that the American eagle, which is this area that is the symbol of the American nation, as time goes by for her nails become curved it's getting curved, and it loses its hunting power. It loses its hunting power precisely because its claws can no longer hold its prey. Its beak can no longer eat properly. So, at that moment, after having lived a good part of its life, it has to make a decision. So, it takes refuge in the heights, the rocks on the cliffs, and there it goes through a painful process, which consists of standing in front of a wall, standing in front of a cliff, and beating its beak, keeping beating its beak, incessantly until it starts to hurt, until it starts to bleed, until that monkey falls off. The eagle needs to lose a beak that no longer serves it. This is painful. That beak falls off, and through the process of nature's own regeneration, a new beak will emerge. It grows, as if it were a child developing again, and the process is not over yet. When is the beak already grown again, strengthened, it begins a process of pulling out its nails. With its own new beak, it begins to pull out the nails that are no longer useful. Because they're already curved, they are no longer capable of holding the prey. If it continues with those old claws and without hunting power, what happens? It dies of hunger. It no longer has the characteristics of an eagle. It is an eagle, but it is an eagle without power, without claws. So, once again, the painful process of pulling out all those nails, of suffering that pain, she herself living the process of mutilation, because nature's own instinct shows her that as she holds on to those old, damaged claws, she will not be able to continue living. After this whole process of pulling out the nails is over, new nails begin to appear, new young nails, strengthened, a response from nature itself that knows how to regenerate. Once the nails have grown, the suffering is not over yet. By her own instinct, she knows that she needs to pull out her feathers. What's more, the feathers are also old, and she needs new feathers, since she has a new beak to connect the new ones. From there, then, she starts pulling out feathers, to wait once again for the net process, right? I don't know how long this lasts. It seems to me like 6 months. 6 months, taking refuge in the middle of the cliffs to live through this process. The new beak, with the new nails and the new plumage. The eagle manages to live forward the same amount of life that she had. The same amount of life that she had until then. The moment of restoration of the new plumage, of the new monkey, of the new claws, is equivalent to the same time in which she lived. It is as if she began to live again. Have you ever stopped to think how fertile nature can be in helping us understand the very meaning of my adventures? Because we too, in many moments of our lives, we come to a situation. Either we live the process of loss to start over, or we will die the way we are. When we are not able to react to our own life, when we gradually give ourselves up, when in a little while we no longer perceive life in ourselves, when we feel proud to be the guide of yet another eagle without the power to fly. There are days the very meaning of the strength of the fight, associated with the meaning of being Christian. Every Christian is a potential eagle. It is capable of taking flight. Of overcoming obstacles. Christianity strengthens us, for this is a gift from God to us. If we really knew the meaning of what it means to be a Christian, what does it truly mean to be a Christian in today's world? We would discover the essence of life, and we would know that there's a power of transformation within us, that no one can hold the world together with the strength of little Christians. But we still live crawling, bartering, as if we were chickens and roosters. We are potential eagles, but we live as if we were chickens in the backyard, as warriors. Do you know why we still haven't had the courage to truly face suffering? I see my people as a priest all the time. I am following. I am bumping into people suffering. There are two ways for us to face suffering. There are two ways for us to face difficulty. Either we face it head-on to overcome, and then overcome it. We take on the suffering of the struggle to overcome that moment. Just as the eagle is able to overcome the suffering of removing the old nails, the old beak, changing the feathers, or else we will spend our whole lives lamenting that we do not know and can no longer hunt. Or do we face the suffering of redemption? This suffering that transforms is the suffering of the daily decision of waking up, of deciding. Today God wants me standing. Today God wants me alive. Today God wants me fighting. Or else we will succumb more and more each day, and it will go on, and we will become the part that we will become without life, thinking that we are eagles, when, in fact, we only have the appearance of being there, but we are not yet transformed by the power of restoration that life asks of us. We have not yet discovered the strength that there is in the specific of what God asks of us. Be blessed when God speaks through his Son Jesus. The expression blessed, he is not saying anything else, if not well guided, above, but that is assuming in your daily life, with a perspective of redemption, but living life with all the difficulties that it has. Why did you discover that you have a religion that is not a religion of failures, and that is not a religion that promises easy happiness, if we can talk about a recipe for Christian happiness? The Beatitudes are here to demonstrate that we can only reach the beauty of the after if we know how to live renunciation, sacrifice, the struggle of the now. You experience this in your life. How many young people today, for example, are experiencing the great difficulty of the college entrance exam? It doesn't pass, it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass. It's not because the entrance exam is now presented as a monster. It's because the entire educational process was lived in a haphazard way by the vast majority. They didn't know how to live the sacrifice of that moment. They didn't know how to live the commitment of that class that will make a difference in the final result at the moment when they have to give answers. The student doesn't become an alcoholic overnight. Nobody becomes an alcoholic overnight. Nobody arrives destroying the house overnight. It's little by little that we put our commitment aside. Families, social situations today are increasingly destroyed. It's not because we made a decision overnight. It's not because we gradually decided to destroy ourselves. When we realize that life is becoming unhappy, when we become incapable of living the human fulfillment that is God's project for all of us. God, right? No one has shown you. God doesn't want anyone disappointed. God doesn't want anyone to fall to the margins of society. But God wants us to stand up. But this standing up requires that we make an effort, that we have commitment in our daily lives. And that is why today, together with psychology, we theologians, psychologists, are already in direct agreement when we say that the process of conversion is precisely the process of emotional maturity, effective maturity to know that happiness is the fruit of commitment, the fruit of struggle, If we think about it, the greatest danger we face of reaching death one day without having accomplished 50% of what we could have done in life. Can you see that generally those who are afraid of dying are people who do not know how to live? Those who are afraid of dying generally do not know how to live, because those who live well, those who commit themselves to what they need to commit themselves to, are not afraid of death. They make life a real experience. There are people who are always going out. They live life as if it were a rehearsal. Tomorrow I will do it. Tomorrow I will forgive well. Blessed are those who do not put things off until tomorrow. Blessed are those who know how to discover the beauty of being happy now. All those who discover that happiness is not tomorrow, but now, and that in their own experience. In profile, their own experience. Of doing, with happiness happening tomorrow, I am already being happy in some way. The experience itself. Of preparing the party. It is already a way of coming to the defense of the party. Many of us have not discovered the second step of bliss, be it consolation, joy, forgiveness, kindness, because we have not yet known how to take the first step in the first part. Those who wait too long for the party are disappointed with it later. It is not like that. They live in a rush. People thinking about what it will be like to stay, only thinking that it will be. They are not realizing that what is happening is already beautiful, already worth it. So, when the party arrives and passes by and ends up that, but was that all? That's all you were not able to discover, that preparing the party was already a way of being happy, that there was already a hidden joy in each moment of preparation, because our house is full of little packages, full of little hidden joys, because sometimes we think that this great happiness will be in a big package. Let's go through a place and get there. Happiness is there, right? Happiness is precisely you having the sensitivity to open a kitchen cupboard, take out a package of rice, and realize that making that rice well, seasoning it well, cooking it well, is already a way of making happiness happen there at that moment. Isn't that an obligation? Make that food now. No, in that case, it is not an obligation. Make this food now. It is not so that it will taste good only later. It is not the process of making it that requires dedication, of you observing the process of making it, of you knowing that everything there is a detail that I am putting in place. You discover that happiness is small, and that it becomes big as we put one thing into another. That bliss consists precisely in you discovering that there is a process, a way to be happy. There is a way to be happy. It is not a magic recipe, but it is the attitude of each hour, attitude of each moment. You strive to achieve a final result. If an athlete, for example, what makes an athlete different? Gold medal, silver medal. Sometimes, my friends, 5 seconds, thousandths of a second, you get ahead by a difference of thousandths of a second. Do you know what makes the difference? Think about the end. Sometimes 5 minutes, 10 minutes more training per day. And in the end, does the gold medal make a difference in the life of the person who wins it? And sometimes, when we discover that we need to give 5 more minutes to reach the second point on the line of bliss, of the consolation, of joy in the moment of suffering, in the moment of struggle, in the moment of humiliation, when we need to give 5 more minutes, we don't have the energy. We can't wait to be free of that. If the athlete starts to think like that, he will never be one that suffering moments of struggle, in moments of humiliation, when we need to give 5 more minutes. We don't have the will. We can't wait to get rid of that. And if the athlete starts to think like that, he will never be a winner. Never. He will be a winner and will always be content with being in third, fourth, last place, because he has already learned to be a loser. He has learned to be an old area. That's the power of hunting. He has learned to be a cicada eternally underground that never comes out to sing because he doesn't really experience the process of being there. To be what is your commitment? A gold medal is the one who challenges himself. I'm tired, but I'm going to train for 5 more minutes. Why is that? 5 minutes today, 5 minutes tomorrow, and the day after, and that? 5 minutes today, 5 minutes tomorrow, and the day after will make a difference in my final result. And you have that in front of you. You have this awareness that you can't stop fighting because life, happiness. The second point of bliss will only happen in your life if you know how to live the commitment of that moment, the difficulty of that moment, if you know how to absorb it with all your strength. that moment that is there knocking on the door, that challenge that needs to be overcome. Because there are many of us who need to fall down, to stare at the cliff. My God, you start knocking. Keep thinking, I'm going to start. My God in heaven, I need to knock down this thing here. Because if not tomorrow, I'll start tomorrow. It's like a diet that starts to follow us. We always have an excuse. I'm going to take advantage of it this weekend. After a start, and then we start fooling ourselves. And we only stay in the first part. We remain poor. We remain miserable. We remain petty. We remain sick. We remain annoyed. We remain humiliated. The dead remain the tomb. We have stopped living with the prospect of victory because we do not have the heroic courage to hit the cliff and let fall what is no longer ours. It is the same as a person who dies, someone in the family who does not accept death. They continue to live as if that person exists. The suffering extends throughout their entire life. They are not able to say goodbye. They are not able to bury. They are not able to understand that people die, no matter how tragic the death is. We need to free ourselves from this. They died. We will suffer, but we will suffer so that healing can happen within us. We will bury what needs to be buried. That is what maturity consists of. It is the same as a boyfriend. That they end up not accepting that the relationship is over and suffering eternally for the boyfriend who will never come back. And there are many people who live in agony today, who do not reach the second part of bliss, who do not know how to let people go, Chico Buarque said in his poems, in a very tragic way, saudade is the setback of a birth, arranging a room for a child who has already died. And saudade is the setback of a birth. It is arranging a room for a child who has already died. Look how sad. Making life an eternal wait for someone who will never return. Those who wait for what is not possible are already happy in the small parts, unhappy in the small parts, because the myth of life is for us to discover. It didn't work out, but now we can go further. And it is precisely something specific to Christianity in us. When you discover that God is not this presence that keeps pointing out what didn't work out, I have the grace and joy of saying that I am a priest of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and that the Sacred Heart of Jesus has nothing else to say to others. Those who are with me will be this to me every day. God is not someone who stands still in the story of life, pointing out what didn't work out. Those who like to point out what didn't work out are unhappy people. Do they have a go-go? Can they point out what didn't work out? They are those petty people, and we are full of people like that around us. How many times are we like that in the lives of others? We don't open our mouths to show that things are good. We only open our mouths to show that things are bad. How many times do we do this in our lives? And this is a constant reminder to others that they are no good, that we feel like evangelists like this, showing that others are no good. You look at the Beatitudes and discover that we only have a right to point out what is useless. The first part of the Beatitudes, if we are capable of pointing out the value that it provides, you can only point out the poverty of others if you have a wealth to present to them. If not, your accusing finger is useless. It makes no difference in the life of others. The devil, the demon, this opposing force, that opposes God. It is present in us all the time, in our relationships, demonic forces all the time within us. I don't like to imagine the devil as a horned man, do I? Pointing. No. You don't know how I like to think of the devil, which I think is a healthier way of thinking. When we are bad in small things, when the other builds a relationship of evil just to deceive, that is very beautiful in us. It is us. It's as if evil were here. I took part of it and said, now I want to be evil too. I reached out toward evil, saying, come to me. This is demonic. This is the devil. And the devil, this opposing force, is the one who stands still on the corners of life, at the doors of our homes, inside the hallways of our homes, to say, of our homes, inside the hallways of our homes, to say, look what you've done. Aren't you afraid? You should be ashamed. Are we traitors? The first part, look what you didn't do. And God, on the contrary, smiling, satisfied with us. Even if we weren't able to do it, God, instead of pointing out what wasn't done, instead of pointing out what didn't work, just smiles at us and says, look what can still be done. Look at the bliss. Look at the happiness that awaits you. Look at the beauty that you haven't been able to conquer yet. I live this time underground now in suffering, in struggle. But I wasn't sad. Discover that this struggle, this suffering, is redemptive in your story. Understand that at this moment in your story, there is happiness being nurtured, and that you will only be able to recognize it to the extent that you are able to perceive that at this moment in your life. In your story, there's pain happening, but there's joy being prepared. Only those who have truly known how to be sad know how to be happy. That's how. Only those who have truly experienced poverty know how to see the value of wealth. And that is why there is a popular saying that says it very well. Everything that comes very easily goes away very easily too, that you didn't have to fight to achieve. And that is why these religions that promise easy happiness. They make a deal with God. Give me this and I'll give you double. No. Double has already been given to us. Double has already been given to us, and God does not change his mind because he has already given us the gift. Happiness has already been given to everyone. God does not change his mind. Doesn't God wake up in a bad mood and say, today I'm going to take back what I've already given? No. If happiness isn't happening, it's because we haven't had the strength to roll up our sleeves, or we haven't had the courage to face the cliff. Or have we not had the courage to face the solitude of earth, and life has become lazy? And we have become lazy. We have not become capable of assuming the sacrifice of that hour, of that moment. And so we end up blaming God. But what about my part, your part? Where's our commitment? Where's our preparation for each day? What do you see ahead, people saying, I can't go on with this downcast face like this. I have to have the courage to change my story, my feelings. I have to have the courage to change my wounds, because only by changing them will I become capable of experiencing healing, the experience of inner reconciliation. How many of us need to do this? How many of us need to live here at this moment? Now, who knows? It's about this suffering that has no redemption in it. We suffer for the sake of suffering. We live for the sake of living. We go on living half-lives. We go on living as if we were just half living. We go on making life just a half experience. I've already told you this story here once more. I'll point out again that it's a beautiful story. They say that in China, there's a river called the Yellow River. It's different from other rivers. IT ends before it dies. And you could ask me if in the squadron, what is the difference between ending and moving? It is not the same thing. When we die, we actually enter a new perspective of life, right? We always believe. So we do not end, we continue in eternity. Death is just a moment of transformation. We transform into something else. We enter another perspective. We enter another reality. And the river dies in the sea. That is, it stops being fresh water and mixes with the salt waters. So, here, that which was my river dies in the sea. That is, it has become a sea. The water does not dry up. It mixes with the others. And the Yellow River, this river in China, it does not have the strength to reach the sea. So it does not die and it ends. It dries up. It does not have the strength to go there. It does not reach its final destination. Look, you who are the backwaters of my waters, it has no other meanings. And do not leave it to die at its final destination, which is not a sad thing. Death is not an event, a disastrous event for the Christian. Also for the river, is not dying in the sea until reaching its final destination, the long-awaited destination. The movement of the waters wants nothing more than to throw it towards its final destination, towards ultimate happiness, towards a final result of bliss. Blessed are the rivers that have enough water, because theirs is the kingdom of the sea. Blessed are the rivers that are mighty, because theirs is the kingdom of the sea. Blessed are the rivers that have many tributaries, that is, that join with others so as not to die for the better, so as not to end before dying. Note well that the river is only capable of before dying. Note well that the river is only capable of reaching the sea to the extent that it has tributaries. This is to the extent that it has other rivers that join it, and that it is not alone, because alone it dies, finished before dying. Note that the river is only able to reach the sea to the extent that it has tributaries. This is to the extent that it has other rivers that join it, and that it is not alone because it dies alone. It finishes before dying. Alone, it does not reach its final destination. Thinking about it, how many of us also do not run the risk of being a yellow stretcher? The expression itself says it right there in Minas when young people schedule yellow emails. This yellow smile, we say, is not boring, lifeless. Do you have a yellow smile? This is such a smile that it is ending. It does not even begin. It is already over. It seems to me it only smiles for, right? It is already over. Now the smile, when it is truly, it dies in joy. It may even end, but it is not over. It died, that is, it transformed. It lit up your eyes, a real smile. The true smile is the one that lights up your eyes. You notice when you smile. A liar is when it's only on the mouth. Then it's yellow. Now, when the smile is able to go beyond the limits of mouth, it lights up your eyes. And then you don't even need to keep your teeth open. We look at you, and we can already see that it's a smile in your eyes. You say a word to me, we can misunderstand. I have every right. You have every right to say yes. Father Fabio, I didn't understand what you said to me. Now you'll never be able to tell me. Father Fabio, I didn't understand the way you listened to me. Your look dispenses words. We look. There's no need to say anything. A look, right? Smiles in a word. There's no mistaking looks, and that's why. It gets wet. Maybe it's the language of the silent, of those who don't need to say much to communicate, that when you look at your child, you know very well what you're saying. When you look at your son, you know very well what you are saying. When you look at your son, can you recognize in him that he knows this? I have the gospel for myself. It doesn't say that. But that moment of Magdalene, that prostitute, is she there ready to be stoned? It was so noisy, there was no time to hear a single word. I was in no condition to hear words at that moment. Amongst everyone, they shouted a single phrase, condemn this woman. And she already sold out, makes up for it. The letter that she deserves to be condemned. I have for myself that at that moment Jesus has no other way of interfering in that woman's life other than by looking and doesn't say a word. He just stares into the woman's eyes. And at that moment, he establishes perfect communication. A phrase being said, love being communicated, forgiveness being granted and from a heart. Understanding like this, Magdalene, what are you doing there? You don't have a right to end now. Your destiny to end? Surrender to this condemnation. It's over. And you don't assume the perspective of what you are. You give up the right to be happy and stop at the first part of the Beatitude and not take the leap. Magdalene, you were not born for this. So, the only look, in the midst of so many condemning voices, becomes capable of lifting oneself up, and a single look is capable of making someone who is falling laugh. What reminds her that she was not born to end, that everything she has been in life, it does not matter if she was a prostitute, it does not matter if she was not worth much in life, it does not matter, because it is forward that one looks, it is forward that one sees. It is the second part of my beatitude that we want. We just need to go through the first one, a disconsolation, sadness, suffering, because we need to go further. We need to take the leap, and that is the moment when that woman experiences going beyond your gaze. I would really like from the bottom of my heart that today we could also find that gaze of Jesus. Who knows? So that we might have the courage to get up and not give up. Who knows? So that a new hope might take hold of our hearts. So that we might be capable. We can wait for death, which is precisely the moment of our transformation. Because knowing how to live, we will certainly know how to move. And that is what Christianity is. And this proposal of life that prepares us for death, this eternal happiness that we hope for can already be experienced here, reconciling that which is contrary within us, within the discourse of that which did not work out, of that which was not able to be corrected. It doesn't matter. Today is the time. Today is life. Wasn't life yesterday? What was yesterday no longer has. No longer has. Yesterday? What was yesterday no longer has. No longer has the power to decide over us. It may even influence us, but it is no longer decisive because it is over and done with. Now, today is the day to be looked at. Today is the day to discover that there is still a way. Today is a day to decide. Who knows how to look for an accident? If today you are a river that is very dry, if today you do not have enough water to reach your final destination, look for the tributaries. And that is why communion is also the translation of life, as well as of the Christian life. We can only reach the end if we have tributaries, if God is helping us through others, if other people are entering our story, if we truly hold each other accountable, not to point out what went wrong, how many children, how many marriages ending like the Yellow River. Do you know why? Because if there is no water to take us to the end, waters are words that help us to win little by little. They help us to overcome obstacles. Waters are words that are often given and delivered without any words in the mouth, but with looks that encourage us to overcome the first moment of history. Blessed today are those who are capable of seeking their tributaries, of seeking a good, of sizing up life, of overcoming this moment of pain, of overcoming this moment of sadness, and of discovering that in this there is already happiness. And I discovered that in this grief there is already growth to be achieved. There is a life to be taken. Here, look, can life be killed? If today life can happen in a beautiful way in our history, why Jesus? Sight? Jesus is the certainty. I think we still have a solution. Jesus is the certainty that there is still a way for us. I know that many times we give up on ourselves, right? I know that many times we look at it, and there is no way. This beak is too droopy. It's not a problem. But if another one, you just have to have courage to pull it out. It is better to be an eagle without myths, but knowing that another one is growing. Why start being an eagle with a beak, which is big, but that is useless? If there is one thing, you know that it is difficult in life for us to experience mercy from the side of the weak. Experiencing mercy from the side of the powerful is great. It is very good to give advice. It is very good to give money to those who are poor. It is very good to help those who need it. It is wonderful. It is almost vanity without mercy. I want it. I've been missing for a day in this story. I'm in need. I'm the one who needs help. It's shameful to often open our hearts and say today that I'm the one who needs help, because I'm ending. My claws are no longer good for anything, except to hurt. I can't get anything good from the world. I go, and everything I pick up is carrion I can't get anything from. I live because I no longer have the strength to take life. I can't feed myself anymore because I'm no longer capable of it, of having the conditions, the ability. So we live in the carrion, we live cultivating the dead, we live in the past, we live in disappointment, and we don't taste the beauty that there is on the other side. Christianity is like glasses. What's the point of sunglasses if they're for protection? If they're prescription glasses? To see better. In this case, it's as if Jesus lent us his way of seeing the world. Then we look at the suffering with Jesus' glasses. We do. Our gaze on that same pain, only not with my way of seeing it. With Jesus' glasses it expands. What's up there? And then I look at that suffering. I look at that moment of pain, and I see the opposite. Do you know when you become capable of discovering the opposite? When you look at a plan that's not only funny, the dualistic plan also almost allows you to use it on both sides, right? But you need to see and discover the grace of looking at the opposite, looking at your sadness. For example, since sadness from the opposite is always a joy in the making, the breaking of the opposite, you need to break that relationship that was hurting you, that was bringing you suffering. You look at it from the inside out, and you discover, wow, it's my liberation. The suffering of the breakup, my liberation. Boyfriends and girlfriends who have been hurting each other for years and years and years don't have the courage to break up, don't have the courage to end it. Friendships that are sometimes destroying us, addictions that are destroying us. Look at the suffering of the breakup from the inside out, and you discover your liberation. You take the blessings. Look at it from the inside out. Look at the humiliation from the inside out, and you discover the virtue. Look at your sin from the inside out, and you discover the grace of the virtue that is in the network. And then, yes, we become wise. What we discover is a different way of seeing each other, a different way of seeing that same story, only now with the glasses of Jesus. And before it was desperate, now it's not. What do we look at through Jesus' glasses? That God is lending us his heart to feel. Before it was impossible to love that person, and now, lending the heart of Jesus, it becomes easier. Before it was impossible to forgive, but now, lending the heart of Jesus, it becomes easier. What the heart of Jesus is moving is transforming me, and I am becoming different. Transformation to arrive. In me,